Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Mare, and we're breaking down the world of pro wrestling.
From the eyes of a smart fan.
And a casual fan, and everyone in between.
Whether you're a lifelong fan
or just getting into it,
you've got a ringside seat with us.
Welcome back to the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast, the show where one marriage, two microphones, and a lifetime of wrestling opinions somehow manage to coexist every single week.
I'm Mr. Wrestling.
And I'm Mrs. Wrestling.
And this week we've got a packed lineup because the wrestling world gave us plenty to talk about.
We're kicking things off with WWE as we break down everything from Monday Night Raw, including the stories happening both in front of the cameras and behind the curtain. From creative decisions to the latest backstage maneuvering, we'll discuss what's making headlines and what could be shaping the future of WWE.
Then we'll shift gears and head over to AEW Dynamite to see what's clicking, what's missing, and some stories that have us looking forward to the next week.
That's only the first half of the show. Later on, we're firing up the wrestling time machine for another edition of our Retrospective series. This time, we're heading back to one of the most talked about independent wrestling events ever, held inside the world's most famous arena, Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Supercard from Madison Square Garden. We'll revisit the matches, the atmosphere, and why that night still matters years later.
And to close things out, we're making one more stop, this time in Reseda, California, as we look back at PWG Steen Wolf, a card packed with future stars, unforgettable moments, and the unique energy that made Pro Wrestling Guerrilla one of the most influential promotions of its era.
So grab your favorite championship belt, settle into your seat, and let's talk some wrestling. This is the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast.
Okay, serious question. How do people let everyone know they're listening to the hottest wrestling podcast in the game?
That's easy. They stop yelling it at strangers in Target and they go to Pro Wrestling Tees.
Boom. See? Growth, maturity, merch?
That's right. The official Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast shirts are live. Fresh designs, soft tees, drip approved.
Perfect for WrestleMania watch parties.
Perfect for AEW, WWE, TNA, and even New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-views.
Perfect for when you're cutting a promo in your living room.
Or when you're reminding your spouse you were right about that heel turn.
I was right.
Debatable.
What's not debatable? You need this shirt.
Head over to Pro Wrestling Tees and grab yours now.
Support the podcast.
Rep the brand.
And join the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling family.
All right, we're going to kick the show off with AEW Dynamite. We had an AEW World Title no countout match. MJF defeats Roosh in 18 minutes and 32 seconds. So the internet says MJF is hurt. What says you?
He had to pull out of the Beyond Independent show, which was supposed to be his last independent show for a while due to a knee injury. He was replaced by Andrade. So when you get MJF pulling out of cards he signed up for, that tells you he probably is injured.
Seems to show up when he should be there.
Yeah, every time you see him now, he's in a tub. So, the internet says it's a knee injury. It happened during this match, and it was a really good match. MJF was super over. Roosh was finally getting a big-time showcase match, and they delivered. It was 18 and a half minutes. Solid match, not the best MJF match, but still, they played really well off each other, and Roosh isn't any less after, taking the loss from MJF there.
Then we had a singles match. Mark Briscoe defeats Lio Rush in 9 minutes and 12 seconds. Is that building towards anything, or was it just to fill a spot?
Yeah, Mark Briscoe keeps challenging MJF, so at some point, it's going to be MJF versus Briscoe, probably sometime in July, maybe at one of their shows, but it depends on the MJF injury. The big thing is going to be All In. That's what they're building towards. They want to have MJF most likely on top for that show, unless this knee injury really is something. But Briscoe's a great challenger. The crowd will always get behind him. The big thing here is Lio Rush. This new character, it's really getting over. The Blackheart, his strange entrance, his wild antics, it's pairing well, with Orange Cassidy, who seems to be terrified of it.
Yeah.
And people are getting behind it. And, Lio Rush is a big time character person.
Yeah,
He initially was like one of Ring of Honor's early young top prospects and then got into WWE as a manager for Bobby Lashley.
that's right. I forgot about that.
And he left wrestling for a while and he's come back. He worked a lot in New Japan, went back to Ring of Honor, and he's been in AEW for a while and switching it up. And good on him to switch up the character, but it's definitely unique and interesting. It's more along what seems like the Bray Wyatt type character,
Yeah,
but it's something completely different in Ring of Honor that I mean in Ring of Honor and AEW that they don't really have.
right.
And it's something.
I mean, they don't really have Abaddon anymore. She kind of filled that weird niche.
Yeah, but she wasn't getting, like, a 9-minute showcase match.
No, she wasn't over at all. I don't think anybody really liked her.
Right, but, Leo, he's getting spots on pay-per-views.
Yeah,
He's having, Ring of Honor matches, he's having matches on Dynamite, so, it's working.
yeah.
He's getting noticed.
Then we had a singles match, a squash match. Andrade El Idolo defeats DK Vandu in 38 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, keeping Andrade, strong. He's currently the New Japan Global Champion, so he'll be defending that title this coming weekend for New Japan. And eventually, just like Roosh got in this show, he's probably going to get a world title match. And he's wanted MJF for a while, so that's another challenger if MJF's able to go, to get
Yeah.
him to All In. So you got Briscoe and Andrade lining up for him.
Then we had an AEW TNT title match. Kevin Knight defeats Mike Bailey in 13 minutes and 15 seconds. So they were partners as up until recently.
Yeah, after Double or Nothing, where Kevin Knight attacked Darby, the following Wednesday he attacked Speedball, and this led to this match. And before the match, Kevin Knight aligned himself with the Don Callis family.
Yep.
So Don Callis has yet another member and another title.
But somebody's either poking holes in those condoms or he's just not using it.
Yeah, the family's getting bigger. And Kevin Knight, he's great, in this role. He's going to have great matches. I like him as the heel. I thought he was going to do this for a while. I thought personally it would have been a better matchup with him and the Hurt Syndicate. I
Yeah.
think him and MVP would have been a nice pairing. I think he would have stood out more as the young gun champion, and eventually could, lead to dissension and maybe a match with Bobby Lashley, but nonetheless, he's with the Don Callis family. Don's gonna help get him over.
Yep.
Don's way better on the microphone than Kevin Knight, so that'll
Yeah.
help as long as Don can keep his teeth in his mouth. But we'll see.
His teeth really came out of his mouth?
Yeah,
Wow. Who knew?
that's like the second time like this month it's happened.
Get him some Gold Bond or whatever. Oh, is that for your
Yeah, that's
oh,
for
I'm
somewhere else.
Denture Bond.
Yeah, but this was a really good match. And Speedball really laid in some really nice kicks to Kevin Knight. I'm a big Speedball fan. I wish they would have gotten a few more minutes to really drive this home, but I expect them to continue this feud and have more
Yeah.
matchups. I'd love to see a rematch here. I think eventually Speedball could win the title, whether it's from Kevin Knight or someone else, but this frees up Speedball a lot
Yeah.
to maybe, get some showcase in Ring of Honor as well, go for some singles gold, maybe him and Moxley have a rematch, a lot of opportunities here. Him and Takeshita would be another good match, but Kevin Knight, and Don Callis, that's an interesting matchup and, bright future for him.
Then we had the Owen Hart Foundation 2026 Women's Tournament quarterfinal match. Mercedes Monday. She was the mystery partner.
She was the wild card.
The wild card versus Alex Windsor. That match was 12 minutes and 23 seconds. I'm always on the hair watch when it comes to Mercedes Monday because she has had some wild hair. And I'm like all for colors and like doing crazy stuff. But like it doesn't always look fantastic. Like they didn't always use the best hair or something. Her hair didn't look terrible. It was good. Got the job done. Stayed on her head.
Yeah, that's the important thing. She was the big wild card replacement for Willow. This match was supposed to be at Double or Nothing, but Willow got hurt. So Mercedes stepped up and she is back. She advanced in the Owen. She had her Owen title with her, so showing that off. And it's interesting to see, was this the plan always for Mercedes to get involved in this? Or did they pivot? And now how is this going to make Mercedes look?
But I feel like she didn't get a big pop, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
They also changed her music.
Oh, did they?
So it wasn't the same music, which I think hurt her because, you know, how are you supposed to know? And it's her big return. People would have done the CEO chant,
Yeah.
but they didn't know this song.
So, yeah, I think they should have waited.
Yeah,
Maybe debuted it at a pay-per-view or something.
something or do something on social to get it hyped for it.
Right.
But, Mercedes back. It was a decent match. Alex Windsor looks great,
Yeah, she does.
and I really like her and Jamie together. I want to see them and Divine Dominion go at it for the tag titles. I would imagine that's probably going to be saved for All In to
Yeah.
give, the British women their big showcase win. So that makes sense there. But Mercedes, is this going to be the return to Mercedes where she starts going back for titles? Mercedes and Tekla, that would be something different, something new.
Yeah.
And, it would be interesting. But, Mercedes hasn't wrestled much this year. So with Tony not being there, and now Willow hurt, that makes perfect sense to have Mercedes back and ready to go.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we can get her best friend free from TKO land and
Bring Bailey.
get her down there.
Then we had a non-title Owen Hart Foundation 2026 men's tournament semi-final match. Will Ospreay picks up the win against Mark Davis in 23 minutes and 16 seconds. They really gave this match some time.
Yeah, and this match was awesome. Meltzer gave it 5 stars.
Okay.
So another 5-star match for Osprey. The big story with this was, Davis beat Osprey in their last match and put Osprey out, which led to the Death Riders getting Osprey built back up.
Yeah.
So Osprey went all out. He's really looked phenomenal the last month, and I'm not sure if that was story or working the rust off, but he's really stepped it up. And surprisingly, Mark Davis, he's really stepped it up, being the national champion, winning that over Jack Perry, to go from being potentially looked at as like the Marty Jannetty of a tag team with him and Kyle Fletcher
Yeah.
to constantly being hurt, never really getting going. Then when him and Doyle finally get going, Doyle gets hurt. And then you think, oh, well, Davis is going to be off TV for like the next 4 or 5 months.
Nope. He's been carrying himself
Yeah,
fine.
he went solo and has really stood out, changed up his look, changed up his style. The pile driver finish that he does is awesome. And, he's really changed his whole trajectory like the last 3, 4 months.
Yeah.
And it's believable to have him in a 23-minute match with Will Ospreay. And this was a fantastic match. It was the match of the night, and take nothing away from Davis, who, even losing as the national champion, Will Ospreay's most likely going to go on to win this tournament.
Right.
So it keeps Davis looking strong. And then, they're 1-1. So it sets up a, future challenger if Ospreay wins in Davis. And, they have that long history of being in United Empire together.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. And, Osprey and the Don Callis family throwing in Mox, it's all interesting on television.
Yeah.
But they're going to keep building the Forbidden Door, which is in a few weeks. And, I'm sure Osprey is going to be involved, and I'm sure Davis is going to defend that title, maybe against someone like Dorada or, someone from New Japan. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. That wraps up our thoughts on AEW Dynamite, but now it's time to turn our attention back to the industry's biggest stage.
From the happenings in All Elite Wrestling, we're heading back to WWE, where Monday Night Raw continues to set the tone for some of the company's biggest stories. Between championship pursuits, roster developments, and plenty of discussion surrounding what happens both on screen and behind the scenes, there's no shortage of topics to dive into.
So let's get into everything happening on WWE Monday Night Raw. So first we had a non-title Queen of the Ring 2026 first round fatal four-way match. Liv Morgan picks up the win against Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, and Chelsea Green in 9 minutes and 23 seconds. So watching this match, the thing that stuck with me was Chelsea's all by herself now coming out to the ring. Like, she can hold her own. She doesn't need an entourage, but it kind of is fun when she had minions, and now our minions are fired. So,
Yeah, she's been trying to team up with Tiffany Stratton on
yeah,
SmackDown, and Tiffany wants no part of her. I've been campaigning to pair Chelsea and Jordan Grace up together.
yeah,
I think that would be interesting. They're not doing anything with Jordan,
right.
and I think with Chelsea's personality, it would be a great yin and yang.
Yeah.
But as far as this matchup goes, I really enjoyed this match.
It's pretty good.
I wish they would have given it a little bit more time and a little less commercials, but the crowd was hot for this. They were in Paris, France, so it was a 2 o'clock start in the US. And, I really enjoyed this. Chelsea's great in the ring. I love how she yells during her match and she's vocal and, she really puts in that effort and she'll do absolutely anything.
Yeah, I do love.
Whether it's diving to the outside, getting kicked, getting beat, I don't think no is in her vocabulary.
Right.
And I just wish they would, invest more into her because she's captivating. She makes the in ring good
Right.
and look good. And, she's very entertaining. And I just think that there's so much more to her. But, Liv Morgan was the one I expected to win, but this was a great match and, could have easily been their main event and something that deserved more time.
Then we had the WWE Women's Intercontinental title match. Sol Ruca picks up the win against Lyra Valkyria in 10 minutes and 6 seconds. I think Sol Ruca is awesome. I love that she has the Intercontinental title. I think she looks ripped. Like, I think she always looks good, but in this match in particular, she just looks shredded to me. And I feel the same about Lyra as I do about Rusev. I don't really want to watch her, but I'm glad she got some time.
Yeah, this was an okay match. Lyra's solid. I think, she's never really going to be that over person.
No.
I mean, it just doesn't seem like it. And she doesn't really have the personality. I think her and Chelsea should have swapped spots in this show. And I think a long term feud with Soul and Chelsea would be entertaining.
Yeah.
And it would get Soul more in tune with the entertainment side and Chelsea
Absolutely.
helping her and making it fun and helping her develop there, I
Yeah.
think would be more beneficial to Saul. But, of course, Soul's going to pick up the win. They're going to keep her looking strong. And, she started out rough her first couple shows on Monday Night Raw, but the last few weeks, she's really turned it up a little bit.
Yeah, she's getting better. I mean, I agree about the Chelsea thing. I think she would be awesome. And, when she talks about Sol Ruca in like promos and stuff, she could just like botch her finish her name, like each time call it something different.
Yeah.
Like she could really do some awesome work, and it would be a really fun feud. And she'd really get Sol over and herself over. But yeah, then we had the Intercontinental title match. Penta defeats Rey Mysterio, 12 minutes and 59 seconds. I really liked this match. I thought it was a really good match.
Yeah, it was awesome. To be able to put on Penta versus Rey Mysterio on a Monday Night Raw, who would have thought you'd be seeing that in
Right?
2026? But this was a good match. Just like we always think, a few more minutes would have made it even better, I think.
Yeah, it was the match of the night for me.
Yeah, I mean, this whole show was awesome, and, to have a legend like Rey Mysterio go against, one of the best luchadors out right now in Penta,
Yeah,
it's cool to see, and, of course, Rey doesn't lose anything by putting Penta over,
right.
and it makes Penta more viable as the Intercontinental Champion, and it's just nice that they're actually giving real title matches on Monday Night Raw.
Right.
And I wish they would do this more because when you have meaningful matches, it makes for a better show. It
Exactly.
doesn't have to be every week, but having, two King of the Ring matches and two Intercontinental title matches, that's huge. And it makes it a better show.
It did feel like the show dragged though for only 4 matches.
Yeah.
I was like, will this ever end? Well, they opened it with Obafemi, and who did he open it with? It was Dom,
Yeah.
Dirty Dom.
Judgment Day. Yeah, but I mean that's WWE. You're gonna get, maybe a solid 45 minutes of wrestling.
Right.
And the rest is just gonna be talking, story development,
Booking.
entertainment. It's totally different. But I think if they spent the time and, not giving it another, 10, 15 minutes to each match, but if you give each match another 3 to 4 minutes, it's gonna go a long way to changing the perspective of the show
Right.
and, it's gonna give your talent more time to get over and make things even better.
Yeah. Then the last match of the night was the King of the Ring 2026 first round fatal four-way match. Javon Evans picks up the win against Ricky Saints, Seth Rollins, and Tala Tonga. This felt like a huge win. For me, I feel like Ricky Saints and Tala Tonga aren't really anything. I mean, I don't watch every week as regular as you do or down to every minute, but I feel like him even just picking up that win over just Seth Rollins alone is huge for him. and makes me excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the biggest win of Javon's main roster career. I certainly didn't expect him to win. I thought, it made total sense for Rollins to pick up the win. But of course, the Vision and Braun Breaker,
Yeah,
continuing to get involved, which makes me think maybe we could be getting a Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins like cage match, Hell in
maybe.
a Cell, something like that. But this was an entertaining match, and it was awesome to see Ricky Saints in the main event picture. Same with Tala Tonga, who they always make to look like a monster,
Yeah,
and he looked great throughout the match. And I thought Ricky Saints was going to pick it up at the end
right.
and get the win, but Javon came in, did his finish, and Saints put him over. But Saints is going to be something, and I think it's going to involve Cody. Whether
Yeah.
it's eventually Cody making a heel turn or Ricky turning, but I think those two are going to work together.
I think he could fill their spot as like their MJF. Obviously, there'll never be somebody as great as MJF, but Ricky Saints could pull that off, especially when he was Big Booty Judy back in AEW. He would have, he was great on the mic. He was a great heel. And I think that if they let him go there, he could really be something huge in WWE.
Yeah, I think if the end goal is to make Chad Gable the Intercontinental Champion, which
Mhm.
was the beginning of this story of him being a luchador,
Yeah,
him and Penta at SummerSlam, and then Ricky Saints and Chad Gable, I think that would be really entertaining. And I
yeah,
think that would be a good feud. And, or, Ricky Saints going against Cody or with
yeah.
Cody, going against the bloodline, you could see that as well. Or if, whatever's going on with CM Punk, there's a lot of rumors going on today about Punk.
I mean, he's got that Scott's Tots match. That's all we really need.
Yeah, but the big rumor going around today is, there's reports that CM Punk isn't happy and that he's looking to leave.
I mean, come on. This is what he does.
Yeah, so nothing's been confirmed. Sean Ross Sapp said he'll talk about it tomorrow, but with CM Punk, you're never not surprised, and
He is always not happy.
he has been looking, very jacked the last few weeks. So he looks to be in great shape. So we'll see what happens, but there's no way he could go back to AEW.
Absolutely not. He burned that bridge. He's gonna have to wait like another 10 plus years like he did with WWE.
So one of the big talking points the last week has been about WWE President Nick Khan. He's been involved with the current lawsuit going on with the shareholders, as well as a lot of backstage talk.
Yeah. So the biggest discussion point is WWE President Nick Khan claiming that WWE's plans for WrestleMania XL in 2024 never changed and that the outcome fans saw was always the intended plan.
So that statement rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way, because it contradicts a lot of stuff and just mostly what you've seen on WWE, TV.
Yeah.
There was that XL documentary where they planned it out that it was going to be Roman and Rock. That's why they did like the whole first press conference and how Rock challenged him. And then they showed the family tree and all that nonsense. And they talked about it in the documentary. And you also had the comments from Levesque, as well as, Dwayne, and Cody essentially stepped aside that time and gave his spot to Dwayne
Yeah.
because that's what they wanted to do. But, Nick Khan saying that they don't listen to social media, and they just do what's best and follow the ratings. But there's just a lot of stuff in the shadows and a lot of dark clouds over WWE right now between all the lawsuits and the creative issues and
Yeah.
all the negative publicity that they're getting from the fans that they don't listen to, so they say.
Yeah. So all of these comments by Paul, Dwayne, and Cody all suggest WWE pivoted after the overwhelmingly negative fan reaction to Cody seemingly stepping aside for The Rock.
Yeah, many fans see Khan's comments as an attempt to rewrite history, something he learned from Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
While others believe he's simply defending WWE's long-term, storytelling strategy. But, we'll see. The fact that they could lose hundreds of millions of dollars in multiple lawsuits right now, how much is that going to affect, how much they're paying on talent? Are we going to see talent cut over the summer?
Our chat's gonna be blowing up with all the new list of people that are getting fired.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen over the summer. I mean, if you lose, hundreds of millions of dollars, that's got to come out of your president and, COO and everybody else,
Yeah.
that's gotta be divvied up, and how that goes about, is a lot of things. Yeah, I mean, it could be insurance, there's a lot of things, but, a lot of stuff going on in the courtroom involving WWE, so we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks. There was also, a lot of talk regarding, Triple H, Paul Levesque, his creative style, and how he's been booking these shows, and how every PLE or pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, he's always hyping, it's going to be a landmark moment. Company's going to change. It's going to be the first of a new era, a new generation. Yeah.
I mean, a common complaint is that WWE stories have become slower, more repetitive, and less surprising than they were during the first couple of years of the Triple H era. Many fans who praised his booking in 2023 and 2024 now argue that major feuds are stretched too long. Hello, Bloodline, and that weekly television often feels like it's treading water between premium live events. I mean, from my perspective as the more casual watcher, if I see it on a PLE and then I see it again for 3 more weeks on TV, then what makes the PLE special? Nothing.
Yeah. And it's totally different than, if you recall that NXT era where,
The black and gold,
yeah,
that was my favorite.
yeah, where you had, Owens and Sammy and Finn, Samoa Joe, you know,
Mhm.
yep, all those women, Keith Lee.
Yeah,
There was a lot of talent and everybody loved that NXT. They loved the takeovers more than WWE pay-per-views. That's what got NXT on the network because people were dying to see it.
yeah,
And you only saw it, going around Florida at local shows as well. But WrestleMania 42 was like the start of it, and it left a lot of fans disappointed. Booking decisions are being blamed on the head of creative, and you have Road Dogg out, talking about these decisions and these
yeah,
meetings and how he felt defeated being there. And there's that perceived favoritism on the roster.
yep,
Like you said, more of the bloodline. And it feels like when they need to get the ball rolling, they get the bloodline involved. I think part of that is if that's more heavily featured, their hopes is they may get that Dwayne rub. Because if they're promoting his family and pushing his family,
yeah,
he's more inclined to say, I'll jump in on that because, it's helping so and so.
mm.
It's making this guy a star. And, it's
I think that they hope that Roman Reigns and the Bloodline storyline is gonna be that Stone Cold, that John Cena, that Rock, moment when it pops in, people are gonna go nuts for it, and it's just he's just not there yet. Like Roman Reigns has had an epic career, and it took a lot to get him there, but he finally got over it, and it was incredible. But now, the Bloodline storyline isn't compelling anymore. It's boring. It's been done. And Roman Reigns, as much as I love him, is like, okay, he's not exciting anymore.
But how much of that bloodline storyline peaking was also due to Cody Rhodes coming over from AEW and beginning to chase them and having
Right.
those series of matches
Mhm.
and him
He
going
shook
after the
things.
title?
Yeah,
And then Punk being involved and the Sammy storyline, Sammy being a part of that bloodline. And, is Sammy going to beat Roman and end that title streak that
right.
went on for years? And, those are monumental things.
Yeah,
And now Roman, yeah, he's the world champion, but he's not the big champion. He's not the one with the giant company logo.
right. That's Cody.
Right. So you have to see. And
Roman's got to come back rebranded and do something new, I don't know.
yeah, they're talking about, bringing Zilla in, who we've
So,
seen
too.
yeah, who we've seen on House of Glory.
Yeah,
There's reports that he was down at the Performance Center this past week, so, that could be someone else joining, whether it would be solo or, with Roman. And could we eventually see a massive bloodline group where they all get together eventually and just take over.
Don Callis family.
Yeah, like the Don Callis family, and they just take over the entire company, both shows. You could even have Zilla down in NXT running NXT, and then they have 3 shows,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't know, I just think it could be different. I'm not into WWE right now, but that doesn't mean I won't always be. It comes and goes, ebbs and flows.
Yeah, every company gets hot, every company, slows down, and that leads us right into looking at 2 shows that were at the time
Huge.
monumental for their companies.
All right, guys, before we jump back into the show, I got to tell you about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's looking like $1 million without spending $1 million.
If you're listening to the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast, you're already a top tier wrestling fan. You care about the history, you care about the storytelling, you care about who really won that promo battle.
So why not dress like it?
Over at Pro Wrestling Tees, you can grab the official Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling merch. And buddy, this isn't some fly by night cheap print situation.
We're talking soft, comfortable tees,
Clean, bold designs.
the kind of shirt that works at a live show, a meetup, or your weekly pay-per-view watch party.
And here's the thing, when you rock the logo, you're not just wearing a shirt, you're repping the show. You're part of the conversation and you're part of the community.
So do me a favor.
Right now, open up that browser.
Search Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Grab the shirt. Maybe grab two. One for you, one for the tag partner in your life.
Support the podcast, support the brand.
And look like you belong in the front row while you're doing it.
All right, let's get back to the show. Yeah, we've covered everything that's happened in the wrestling world today, but now it is time to rewind that clock and revisit a pair of events that helped shape the landscape we see now.
For this edition of our retrospective series, we're looking back at two very different shows that each left a lasting mark on wrestling history.
First, we'll head to Madison Square Garden for Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Supercard, a landmark event that brought together some of the biggest names outside of the WWE and showed just how much the wrestling business had changed.
Then we'll travel back further, all the way to Reseda, California, for PWG's Steen Wolf 2011. Looking at that card today feels almost unreal when you see the talent involved. Future stars and wrestling icons were all sharing the same stage, including names like Kevin Owens, the Young Bucks, Ricochet, and many others.
Ricochet had hair.
Yeah, all these guys would go on to become major players across the industry, so let's get into it.
So before we get into the matches, we do have to talk about just how big G1 Supercard was for the wrestling industry. It was held on April 6, 2019. This historic event brought together Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling for a massive super show inside the legendary Madison Square Garden during WrestleMania weekend.
Getting to this point wasn't easy. When the show was announced in 2018, it immediately generated buzz. We were one of those people that bought tickets the day it came out.
Yeah.
But there was also reports that outside pressure could prevent the event from even happening. Fortunately, those issues were worked out, and fans responded in a huge way. During the pre-sale that we were a part of, thousands of tickets disappeared almost instantly. And once tickets became available to the general public, buildings sold out in just minutes.
Made this event more significant was the venue itself. MSG had long been considered WWE territory, and G1 Supercard became the first major professional wrestling event in the arena not promoted by the McMahon family in nearly 6 decades. That alone made the show feel historic before the first bell even rang.
With a sold out crowd, a partnership between two of the biggest wrestling companies outside of WWE, and the spotlight of WrestleMania weekend shining on New York City, G1 Supercard carried enormous expectations heading into one of the most talked about wrestling events of 2000.
So the first match was the Ring of Honor World Television Titles Never Openweight title match. Jeff Cobb from Ring of Honor defeats Will Ospreay, the Never Openweight champion, in 12 minutes and 52 seconds. And this was a title change. I mean, if you think about it, look at where these guys are now. Jeff Cobb, he was just in WWE with the MFTs and now he's not. I mean, he's been in AEW. He's wrestled all over the place. I mean, he was in PWG, right? And then Will Ospreay, he was such a little guy back then and he had that platinum blonde dyed hair. But like the music was the same, the skill level was the same. I mean, and he's a major player in WWE now.
In AEW.
Yes, that's the company.
So this match got 4 stars, and being there in person, the venue was hot.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning. The pre-show, you got to see Minoru Suzuki, you got to see Jushin Thunder Liger, the Great Muta came out.
You lost your shit when Muta came out.
Yeah, that was the one and only time I got to see the Great Muta, and it was awesome. And that was my second time being in Madison Square Garden for a wrestling show,
Mm.
and it was awesome. And you were drinking $1 PBRs
Yeah, I
across
don't
the
remember.
street.
I don't remember a lot of the show.
Yeah,
And
and
having Taco Bell.
yeah, this was an awesome awesome event, and this was a great way to start the show. Both guys went all out, and to think about now, Jeff Cobb beating Will Ospreay
Yeah,
in the opening match of a show,
it's insane.
you wouldn't think that right now.
Then we had a singles match. Little baby Roosh defeats Dalton Castle in his prime with Boy 1 and Boy 2. It was a 15-second match. Roosh with the squash. This was his first few months in W. Just kidding. You go ahead and read that sentence because I'm not good at that.
Yeah, this was Rush's first few months in Ring of Honor and him going over Dalton Castle. It's pretty funny because you still see this same thing on AEW TV. And this was almost what, 7 years ago?
Yep.
And, Rush is still being booked the same way. Dalton Castle's still in Ring of Honor as well. And,
This was his prime, though. This is when he was like really good.
yeah, yeah, this was coming off of, he had been world champion. He had lost the title
hmm
and because he had lost the title to Cody. And
Then we had the Ring of Honor Women's World of Honor World Title match. Kelly Klein defeats Maya Iwatani in 10 minutes and 38 seconds. For me, this was a cool match to see. In recent pods, we've talked about Iwatani and how you'd like to see her wrestle certain women and how, dream feuds and whatnot. And so to go back and see a match of hers that I was actually there for was pretty cool.
yeah, and again, this is similar to the Cobb and Osprey. You would never expect Iwatani to put someone like Kelly Klein over in a show like this. And it shows how much women's wrestling has changed, especially here in the US. Kelly Klein isn't even working on any shows, and Iwatani just left Marigold and is most likely going back to Stardom, where she'll instantly be one of the, top women in all of Japan.
Yeah.
And she's constantly been one of the top women of all of women's pro wrestling in the last few years. So, it was awesome to see, where they started and where they are now.
Then we had the New York City six-man tag team street fight. So this match was Flip Gordon and Lifeblood, which was Juice Robinson and Mark Haskins. And they picked up the win against Bully Ray, Shane Taylor, and Silas Young in 15 minutes and 1 second. It was a pretty good match. We all loved Flip Gordon back then. Where's that little guy now?
He's in CMLL. Yeah, he's working Mexico. Juice Robinson in
AEW.
NAEW. Bully Ray, you can still hear him on Busted Open.
Shane Taylor Promotions.
Yeah, and Ring of Honor. So
Young, he was in AEW, right? Wasn't he that big bearded fella?
he's done some spot matches for them, but hasn't been there full time. But this was more of the nostalgia match.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to see Bully, and Flip was huge at this time. And
left.
yeah, he had the elite rub still. So Ring of Honor was still pushing him, even though the elite wasn't there. And Juice,
He still had his dreads.
yeah, he was, back and forth with Ring of Honor and New Japan, coming off of that NXT run.
Yeah.
So, now look at him.
Then we had the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Title three-way match. So Dragon Lee picks up the win against Bandito and Taji Ishimori in 8 minutes and 54 seconds. So this is a title change. Bandito's still in Ring of Honor, and now he's the world champ.
Yeah, Dragon Lee was huge in New Japan. They thought very highly of him. Tony Khan thought very highly of him, but he chose WWE and that whole, backstabbing with AAA. So, he's now in WWE and getting featured heavily on Monday Night Raw. And look at Bandito. I think Bandito's the best he's ever been. And, he was coming off of that huge All In appearance
Yep.
where everybody was really figuring out who Bandito was. And it was awesome to see him then and now. And this was a really good match. And this is when the junior division for New Japan was, still at its peak.
Yeah.
Still had Hiromu, had Dragon Lee.
There was a Daryl in the audience.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to Hiromu later, but this was New Japan coming off of the best run it's ever had. And, the partnership with Ring of Honor was very strong at this time. And, they were doing no wrong here.
Then we had the IWGP Tag Team Title and Ring of Honor Tag Team Title four-way match. So Gorillas of Destiny, which is Tama Tonga and Tongaloa with Jado, defeat Los Ingobernables de Japón, so Evil and Sonata, back when Sonata was the shit, and the Briscoes, Jay and Mark Briscoe, back when Jay was still alive, and the Villain Empire. And the Villain Enterprises, Brody King and PCO. Man, Brody King had a lot of tattoos, but not as many as he has now. But I mean, he looked pretty much the same. This was only 9 minutes and 45 seconds, and the part in the show where Enzo and Cass just tried to do a run in, it was like a total shoot, right?
Yeah. So nobody knew that they were coming but Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor didn't tell their talent, didn't tell their partner on the show, New Japan. So the crazy thing about this, the same time that this run-in was happening, the same time when Bret Hart was giving his induction speech for the Hall of Fame for, him and the Anvil,
Yeah.
that a fan ran up on stage and attacked Bret Hart.
That's right.
So these two things happened at like the exact same time. And, the Briscoes started fighting with Enzo and Cass in, in the
In the
fans.
crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Cutting it out of the show because Joe was watching and Steve was like, "Did you see that?" And Joe's like, "See what?"
yeah.
I do remember that part.
And, you could see, when we watch back, you could see a brief glimpse of Enzo where, they started fighting in the crowd for
Yeah.
no reason. And, Ring of Honor was to bring in Enzo and Cass, but they got such negative push from this whole incident where Ring of Honor just booked it completely wrong.
Right.
And had they just like had them come out like either during the match or after the match walking down the ramp, I think
Make it different.
yeah, it would have been huge and it would have gotten a huge pop in Madison Square Garden because, people love that shtick. As evidence as why Enzo and Cass are most likely going to be showing up on NXT television here soon.
Be funny. I think it's gonna be silly.
Yeah,
Enzo's been doing the same shtick though since he left WWE.
people love it though.
I guess so. SAWFT.
Yeah, but it was, you know, I loved this version of the Gorillas of Destiny so much more than what WWE presents.
Total badasses. I loved when they were the Gorillas of Destiny. That time in New Japan was just so special. There was so much good talent back then.
Yeah, Evil, who just became number one contender for the
Whatever his name is.
yeah.
Naraku.
Him and Sonata were a great team before Evil, turned on LIJ
Yeah.
and the Briscoes, New York City ate them up.
Yeah. Everybody
And
loves a good chicken farmer from Delaware.
right. It was a short but fun match.
Then we had the Rev Pro Undisputed British Heavyweight Title match. Zack Sabre Jr. with Taka Michinoku defeats Hiroshi Tanahashi in 15 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah, this was awesome to see Sabre Jr. live and to get this showcase. The fact that he won and submitted Tanahashi in Madison Square Garden shows what New Japan, thought of Sabre Jr. and it made sense because they would eventually make him world champion.
Yeah.
And Tanahashi putting people over like he did for Sabre Jr. was awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody getting
We had the IWGP Intercontinental title match. Kota Ibushi picks up the win against Tetsuya Naito in 20 minutes and 53 seconds. This was a title change and a very long match.
Yeah, this was awesome. Ibushi was on his own, no Kenny here in New Japan, and Naito was still running it at, top speed here.
Yeah.
Meltzer gave it 4.5 stars, and this was awesome to be able to see Kota Ibushi go all out on a big stage with someone like Naito,
Yeah.
who could still go here and, probably had it in their minds that they wanted to go out and steal the show. And they had a fantastic match, and it was, probably the best match on the entire show
Yeah.
for my recollection and, being a huge Ibushi fan myself, makes you wonder had, Ring of Honor and New Japan worked with Tony Khan, how might this card have looked different?
Yeah. Then we had the Ring of Honor. Honor. Then we had the Ring of Honor World Title three-way ladder match. Matt Taven defeats Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll, who we haven't seen him in a minute. He got canceled, but he was a great wrestler. Loved him. Loved Jay Lethal. I don't think Matt Taven was ever anybody I liked, but this match went on for 29 minutes and 35 seconds and was a title change from Jay Lethal to Matt Taven.
Yeah, this was huge. And, like you said, Marty Scurll was super over at the time. He was one of the, like Flip Gordon, one of the
Elite.
elite members that stuck around. He didn't make the jump to AEW, and everybody kept pushing for Marty to win the Ring of Honor World Title.
Yeah.
And he was part of the booking crew at this time, and this was a huge opportunity and a huge showcase for Matt Taven, who came off the Kingdom run with Mike Bennett and Adam Cole and Maria Kanellis,
Yeah.
and really shot up, the world of Ring of Honor and beating Jay Lethal, who came off that huge Cody feud, the
Yep.
huge TV title run with Truth Martini,
Yep.
losing to Briscoe, it was awesome. And, this was a solid match. It wasn't the best ladder match, but, all three guys really tried hard. And, it's hard for a match like this to really be anything other than just like a car crash
Yeah.
compared to the other in-ring matches that you saw during this show with New Japan.
Right.
I mean, you were getting Prime Naito, Prime Sabre Jr., Prime Okada, Prime Osprey.
Yep.
These guys were going all out. And, for what it was good.
Yeah. Who's that guy on the right? That's a perfect 10.
I didn't see.
You look familiar. All right. Then we had the IWGP Heavyweight title match. Kazuchika Okada defeats Jay Wright. Kazuchika Okada defeats Jay White with Gato in 32 minutes and 33 seconds. So was this supposed to be Kenny versus Okada?
That was the thinking at this time. When we bought tickets for this,
It was because we wanted to see Kenny Okada, right?
yeah, this was announced and tickets went on sale in like November.
Yeah.
And in January is when the Elite left New Japan and Ring of Honor
Yeah.
to start AEW. So nobody knew what was going on. And, this show primarily sold out because there was the inkling that, man, maybe we could get Kenny versus Okada in America for the first time.
Yeah.
And it be at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And, maybe we'll get the Young Bucks and the Briscoes. We could have gotten anything. Maybe we got the Golden Lovers against the Young Bucks one more time.
Yeah.
The possibilities were endless here, but Jay White was the next guy up, the replacement for Kenny Omega.
In the Bullet Club.
Yeah. And to have this match with Okada, this was big match Okada. This is when Okada was going 1,000 miles a minute. Meltzer gave it 4 3/4 stars. And, this is when Okada was going no less than 30 minutes every time out there. And this was awesome to be able to see Okada win the IWGP title in New York City in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's a once in a lifetime thing. And the only show that you've been able to see this title defended, like this.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome. It was an awesome experience. The whole show was awesome. And, I just remember, the crowd being on fire the whole time.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was a great show.
And there was no real like promos or anything like that.
Back to back to back wrestling. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
It was more like a New Japan Super Show and, mixed in with like the top independent talent at the time. And it was fantastic. It was a great experience to be there in person.
Okay. We're going to move on to PWG Steen Wolf. Before we dive into the event itself, it's important to understand just how influential Pro Wrestling Guerrilla was to modern wrestling.
Founded in Southern California in 2003 by a group of wrestlers that included Excalibur and Super Dragon, PWG started as a small independent promotion, but quickly built a reputation as one of the most respected companies in the wrestling world. Fans were drawn to its unique blend of incredible in-ring action, offbeat humor, and a grassroots atmosphere that made every show feel special.
PWG also became famous for doing things its own way, whether it was bizarre event names, tongue-in-cheek marketing, or an intimate setting that put fans right on top of the action. The promotion developed a loyal following unlike almost any other independent company. By the mid 2010s, many fans and critics considered PWG the gold standard of independent wrestling, with Dave Meltzer even calling it the best wrestling in North America.
The promotion's biggest annual event, Battle of Los Angeles, became a must-watch tournament and helped introduce future stars to a wider audience. Over the years, countless wrestlers who would go on to find success in WWE, AEW, New Japan, and beyond passed through PWG's doors.
The scenes, co-owners Excalibur and Super Dragon handled nearly every aspect of the company, from booking matches and producing shows to creating promotional materials and editing video content. They built PWG into one of the most influential independent wrestling promotions in wrestling history. Now, one thing to note is back when PWG was on, like maybe towards the tail end, I mean, they haven't done Bola in a while. We've been together like almost 11 years.
They stopped at COVID.
So anytime Bola was coming, it was like the conditions to see it had to be prime or you would never see it again. Like you either bought the DVDs or whatever, or you didn't get to see it. It was hard material to get a hold of. And so we rarely were able to watch it when it aired because it was so hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean, I have a collection of PWG shows, and I feel like the fact that I have that much PWG is
Insane.
yeah. But yeah, PWG, they never got into streaming. Super Dragon never wanted to get on, streaming or to go digital with it. The only way to get to see it was either seeing it live or waiting for the DVD to come out and you could buy the DVD.
It had to be the set too, right?
Yeah, and you would get these little like preview, that you could see on YouTube or Twitter,
Y-
social media, and it would get people super excited for these shows, or even sometimes that was all you could see was just these previews, and it was awesome. And PWG was one of the, super indies that you don't really see anymore.
One of our favorite shows to watch.
Yeah.
Like, we loved it. So starting off, we had a six-man tag team match. Candice LeRae, Chris Cadillac.
Yep.
So starting off, we had a six-man tag team match. Candice LeRae, Chris Cadillac, and Famous B defeat Freddie Bravo, Peter Avalon, and Ray Rosas in 11 minutes and 49 seconds. Little baby Candice LeRae, she wasn't in the cutest little tag team anymore, but she was still a badass.
Yeah, this was before that tag team, so they hadn't even.
They hadn't even formed it.
Yeah. So, Candace, she could always go. And in PWG, she had some main event matches. She had some historic feuds against the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
And, the fact that she was in the opening match and, Pretty Peter Avalon, who would go on to be one of the initial signees of AEW.
Yeah.
And, here he was in PWG opening the show.
We had a singles match. TJP or TJ Perkins picks up the win against Rocky Romero in 13 minutes and 31 seconds. These guys were babies.
Yeah, I mean, Rocky's always wrestled everywhere. He's always been in every country and every promotion, and he still is now. He works for AEW and New Japan. He wrestles in CMLL. He wrestles on Dynamite. He wrestles on Collision.
Yeah.
He wrestles on New Japan Strong. And TJP, he's been working in MLW. He was in WWE for a while.
Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah, he was the first one. He was the 205 Live champion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So, here he is in the second match on Steen Wolf for PWG. And, he's had a huge career. He's been all over. He was in New Japan for a long time. So, it was fun to just go down memory lane and see these guys where they started and where they are now.
Then we had a tag team match. The Rock Nest Monsters, which is Johnny Goodtime and Johnny Yuma, defeat the Fightin' Taylor Boys. So Brian Cage Taylor, or as we know him, Brian Cage, and Ryan Taylor with Chuck Taylor in 12 minutes and 13 seconds. I hardly recognize Brian Cage. This is back when he could still reach his own butthole to wipe. He had hardly any muscles. It was insane.
Yeah, he looked like just a normal,
He's just
regular jacked wrestler.
with Brian Cage's face on him.
Yeah.
He's certainly grown over the years.
Yeah, he's bulked up for sure. But it shows you, the talent that you're seeing, that came through this company. I mean, each match so far, you have people that are still to this day on weekly television
Yeah.
and still highly featured and still making those dates.
Yep. Then we had a singles match. Davey Richards defeats Willie Mack in 16 minutes and 22 seconds. Willie Mack, was one of my favorites back then. I loved him, but the story of Willie Mack is fun, and the fact that he's still going is amazing. What's his story, babe?
Yeah, so Willie Mack was a fan in the audience, and they gave him a job setting up the ring and everything, and then they started letting him mess around in the ring, and then he got trained and started working these PWG shows, and,
Yeah.
he's signed for AEW, he's worked in Mexico, he's worked in Ring of Honor, he's worked in GCW, he's worked in MLW, he's
He's
worked
been everywhere.
everywhere.
He was in TNA, right?
Yep. I mean, he's been all over the place. Same with Davey Richards, part of the American Wolves with Eddie Edwards, huge tag team in Ring of Honor. He was featured in MLW. He was in TNA for a while. He's been a world champion. And, to see Willie Mack this long ago, I mean, this was, early Willie Mack, even, before his Lucha Underground days that you really started to follow him and get into him.
Then there was a tag team match, The Dynasty, which was Joey Ryan and Scorpio Sky. Rest in penis, Joey Ryan. Picks up the win against Los Luchas, Phoenix Star, and Zoker in 13 minutes and 23 seconds. Joey Ryan, enough said, the hamburger helper that doesn't quit, adult porn star.
Yeah, so this was before Sky and Ryan had split, and before he was canceled, and before he made that huge gimmick change that everybody loved.
I do miss Joey Ryan. I don't remember why he got canceled. I do miss his gimmick though. He was one of a kind.
It's a rough story, but
We don't have to go there.
but the fact that you're seeing someone like Sky, who was an AEW original,
Mm-hmm.
part of SCU,
Yeah.
here he was featured heavily in PWG, and he was always there. And Joey Ryan was one of the original owners of PWG.
Oh, really?
So he was part of that collection of wrestlers that started this company. So he was heavily involved in the early stages of it, but the talent was crazy here.
Then we had a singles match. Ricochet defeats Chuck Taylor in 20 minutes and 5 seconds. Ricochet was not bald. He had hair.
Yeah.
He didn't have his tattoo. This was pre-Prince Puma. Like,
I think he was still with Tessa at this point.
he was with Tessa for a long time, like all the way into
Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was early Ricochet, and like you said, he wasn't bald, but I think like his athleticism here was off the charts.
Oh, absolutely.
This was during his Dragon Gate run, and this was early Ricochet, and he made a shooting star look like nothing. During this match, there were times where it looked like he was just floating when he was doing these moves, and it really proves that he's one of the best high flyers ever. He's still going strong, and right now he might be the best he's ever been, and this is 15 years apart.
Yeah.
And he's just now hitting his prime. I really hope AEW gets the PWG video library, whether it's for their streaming service or whatever they have going on, so people can, appreciate matches like this and people get to see someone like Chuck Taylor. Because if you know Chuck Taylor from AEW, you think he's part of the best friends. But when he was the Kentucky Gentleman, Chuck Taylor at PWG, he could work. And he was beloved in PWG. He had some wild feuds, and he was always awesome on commentary. So you got to enjoy, a little bit of everything. And that was the great thing about PWG. You had Excalibur on each and every match. He was like
Yeah.
the Joey Styles of PWG. You could
Yeah.
always count on him, and sometimes he would be solo, or sometimes it would be other wrestlers.
Yeah.
Kevin Steen would be there. Sometimes it'd be the Young Bucks, Adam Cole, Chuck Taylor was there a lot, Chris Hero was there a lot doing commentary. So it was just awesome, and seeing just a blend of styles, Ricochet and Chuck Taylor, 20 minutes. I mean, the crowd loved this, and this was early Ricochet. He was still the junior guy in New Japan and working some Dragon Gate shows. So this was awesome.
Then we had the PWG World Tag Team title match. The Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, pick up the win against Future Shock, which was Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly in 20 minutes and 55 seconds. This is totally a match you could see on AEW Wednesday or Saturday night. When it comes to the Young Bucks, I was first introduced to them because you showed me a PWG show. You were like, they're like this indie throwback tag team. Like they do all the suck it and cool throwback moves from the Attitude Era. And like I remember the very first time I saw them, I was like hooked from the beginning, and they've always been incredible,
Yeah, I started getting back into Japanese wrestling when AJ Styles got to New Japan.
Yeah.
And that's where I really, discovered the Young Bucks and the Bullet Club, and I got into it. And, following New Japan and Ring of Honor, for Ring of Honor, you could sometimes get their TVs, whether it was on the internet or, depending on where you lived, you could watch it on Sinclair, but you would watch New Japan and they would have those weekly shows on Access TV
Yeah.
where Mauro Ranallo and Josh Barnett would show their matches and give you English commentary. So I always looked forward to those and watching those each and every week to get, more New Japan because they didn't have English commentary.
Yeah.
You couldn't find even the Japanese matches.
Yeah.
But then, like around this time in 2011, is when New Japan really started picking up steam and started showing even just all Japanese, cards.
Yeah.
And you could start getting those. And this right here just showed the talent in the indies and, how great these guys were. I saw a Future Shock when they split up, and it was the first Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, like street fight match
Yeah.
at a Ring of Honor, like super show during WrestleMania weekend. And, they were great back then. Watching the Young Bucks here just showed how awesome they are. And they were the kings of PWG. And the Young Bucks, they're still having these types of matches. And they're doing all the same moves 15 years later. They look great.
Yeah.
And watching this back, really cements the Young Bucks as probably one of the top 5 tag teams all time for me.
Absolutely. If not the top tag team of all time.
And they could switch from heel to babyface in PWG, and the crowd just went for it.
Absolutely.
The Young Bucks were, the PWG guys, and
100%.
they would always get the reaction. They would do whatever, and the crowds would either boo for them or cheer them. Whatever they were trying to do, the crowd went with it. And the Young Bucks, they were just awesome.
Then we had the PWG World Title. Then we had the PWG World Title ladder match. El Generico defeats Kevin Steen in 26 minutes and 57 seconds. This was a title change. These two have been battling and headlining shows since the dawn of time, like since Ring of Honor.
Yeah, Ring of Honor, PWG, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT.
Fought, and they every few years they get back together and then they break up again, and it's just like it almost never gets old
Never gets old.
because they're real life best friends, wrestled all over the place. But their matches were incredible.
Yeah, this match was awesome. I could watch these two wrestle anytime, and this right here was one of their best. The violence and the anger they can show towards one another and still be the best of friends in real life, it's just amazing. You could see watching this show how amped the crowd was.
Yep.
And during PWG, the crowd was right on top of you. There was no barricade.
Nope. There.
Like if they fell out onto the front row, you were catching a wrestler.
Oh yeah.
And if chairs went flying, ladders went flying, you better be ready in the front row. And we've watched shows of PWG where, Sofia Vergara from Modern Family was in the front row.
Yeah.
And Ronda Rousey was there with her crew at some point. And, this show here was one of their better shows. And, this was just a packed house. I remember when we were rewatching this and I pointed out to you, look at all the people on top of one
Oh,
another.
absolutely.
And you could buy pitchers of beer.
Just pictures.
Yep.
Not glasses.
Yeah. So, every time they showed the crowd, you would just see someone drinking from a pitcher of beer. It was awesome. And during this match, the Young Bucks got involved. They attacked Kevin Steen. El Generico took some of the, most wild and insane bumps, which he still does now. And his selling during this run of El Generico, the final stages of it, was second to none. No one could, do the things he did.
Yeah.
And there was a point where they did a sunset flip bomb off a ladder onto another ladder that was absolutely insane. And in PWG, they didn't have an endless supply of ladders. They had like 3 ladders.
Yeah.
A big, medium, and a small. And they just made it work. And the crowd shouted, "Best show ever." And the Young Bucks attacked and challenged Steen to a guerrilla warfare match. And of course, Kevin Steen being Kevin Steen, he doesn't have any friends. He just turned on his best friend and just fought him. So the lights go out and here comes Super Dragon,
Yeah.
who gets pop of all pops. The crowd goes nuts, and that's how they end the show. They fight off the Young Bucks, and they build to the next Super Show. And if you ever get a chance to watch a PWG show or buy the DVD, watch it. It's going to be a great show.
100% worth it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be entertaining. And if you're a pro wrestling fan, check out PWG. It's the indie of all indies. And it's basically AEW light with more profanity and more obscure stuff.
And that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast.
Whether you joined us for the latest WWE discussion, our thoughts on AEW Dynamite, or the trip down memory lane with G1 Supercard and PWG Steen Wolf, we appreciate you spending part of your day with us.
Don't forget to keep up with Steve's live chats on X at WrestlePod. You can also catch us on Instagram and on YouTube at Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling Pod.
And if you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a rating, share the podcast with the wrestling fans in your life. It helps us grow and lets us keep bringing these conversations to you every week.
Thanks for listening, and remember, no matter what promotion you watch, what era you love, or who your favorite wrestler is, we're all fans of the same thing, a great wrestling story. We'll catch you next time.